there has been polling data that is causing a great deal of anxiety among Democratic Party stalwarts and in the Biden White House, and for a very good reason. For those of you who didn't see it, here is one of the latest polls that is from the New York Times that the headline tells a big part of the story. There you see it. Trump leads in 5 critical states as voters blast Biden. Times Siena poll finds. Voters in battleground states said they trusted Donald J. Trump over President Biden on the economy, foreign policy, and immigration, as Mr. Biden's multiracial base shows signs of fraying. Here are the 6 swing states, all of which Biden was declared the winner of in 2020. And here you see Trump with a significant lead. He has a 10-point lead, or a 9-point, actually it's a 11-point lead in Nevada, a 6-point lead in Georgia, a 5-point lead in Arizona, a 4-point lead in Pennsylvania, and a 5-point lead in Michigan. All states that Biden was declared the winner of in 2020. Only in Wisconsin is Biden leading, and he's leading there only by 2 points. But what is even more disconcerting for Democrats and confusing to the media is the reason why that's happening. Quote, across the 6 battlegrounds, all of which Mr. Biden carried in 2020, the president trails by an average of 48 to 44%. Discontent pulsates through the poll, with the majority of voters saying Mr. Biden's policies have personally hurt them. The survey also reveals the extent to which the multiracial and multi-generational coalition that elected Mr. Biden is fraying. Demographic groups that backed Mr. Biden by landslide margins in 2020 are now far more closely contested, as 2/3 of the electorate sees the country moving in the wrong direction. Voters under 30 favor Mr. Biden by only a single percentage point. His lead among Hispanic voters is down to single digits, and his advantage in urban areas is half of Mr. Trump's edge in rural regions. Black voters, long a bulwark for Democrats and for Mr. Biden, are now registering 22% support in these states for Mr. Trump, a level unseen in presidential politics for a Republican in modern times. 22% of black voters, 1 out of every 5, saying they would vote for Trump over Biden in these states. Add it all together, and Mr. Trump leads by 10 points in Nevada. We just went through those numbers. And then here you have an article today specifically about the fact that black and Latino voters are abandoning Trump. As black voters drift to Trump, Biden's allies say they have work to do. And there's an article about how these demographic groups on which the Democratic Party has long relied to win elections simply don't trust Democrats and don't like Joe Biden. Now, I think there's a couple of notes here to observe. One is that it is remarkable that Donald Trump even has a chance to win, let alone is leading in the key states by this margin, given that he is now indicted on felony charges in 4 different jurisdictions, 2 federal, 2 state. 10 years ago, it would be unthinkable for an American politician who even had the possibility of an indictment to get near high office. And yet now, Trump is indicted in 4 different jurisdictions on 4 different felony charges. And voters don't care. In fact, his lead has increased since he's been indicted. And I think the only conclusion you can reach is that voters regard our leading institutions of law enforcement and the Justice Department and the corporate media that constantly pushes the narrative that Trump is guilty. They regard those institutions as fundamentally corrupt. They don't trust them any longer. They don't listen. These media outlets have been telling people that Trump is corrupt, that he's a criminal, that he did an insurrection, and they don't care. They're not listening to that. They don't trust these institutions. The media can't affect what they think any longer. And then the second thing to note is that think how often over the last 8 years or 7 years since Trump descended down that elevator and gave that first speech about immigration, how often media outlets have said that Donald Trump is a white nationalist, that he's a racist, that he hates black people, he wants to put Latinos into cages, he wants to put minority groups into concentration camps, that he's a fascist, that he wants to install white nationalist dictatorship. And here you have a huge number of Latino and black voters, 42% of Latinos, 22% of black voters saying they intend to vote for the person these media outlets have repeatedly told them is a white nationalist and hates them because he's racist. Think how much contempt they have to have for these media corporations, how little trust they have to have in them for them to tune that out and reject that and decide they're going to vote for the Republican candidate over the Democratic Party candidate, given the history of voting patterns of these groups. And these institutions, the Justice Department, the law enforcement agencies and the FBI, prosecutors and the corporate media have earned that distrust. They've earned that hatred. They deserve that. And they're starting to realize just how much of a gap there is. Imagine they go into work, they talk to each other every day about how Donald Trump is such a laughable, ridiculous, preposterous, corrupt fascist. And then they read the New York Times and they see what the American people are thinking. And they have to come to the recognition that what they say doesn't matter. Now, they'll blame Americans for being stupid, for being low information, for being so susceptible to people who are feeding them disinformation. They'll blame the voters themselves, as they always do. But deep down, they have to know that they are losing control over the narrative. That's why they have turned more and more to censorship, because they're trying to silence and eliminate the only voices that are dissident, that critique them, that offer an alternative way of thinking. And the reason is because of this. They saw in 2016 that if they allow too much free speech on the internet, they cannot control the outcome. And they're seeing that again now, that no matter how much they crack down, they're held in such contempt and distrust that if anything, they produce the opposite of the outcome they're trying to engender. And no matter your preference for party or for candidate, if corporate media and our leading institutions of authority have completely and irrevocably lost the faith and trust of most Americans, given what they are, that is something that ought to be celebrated. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.